Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. We got a densely packed episode today, gang. Sorry for the late post, but let's get right into it. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park, Shay Meehan, and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If anyone out there wants to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/YangDaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. On to the news. Quick note, that story about Olympic athlete Cleet Keller the other day was referred to me by Twitter user Heart on My Sleeve, and I forgot to give them credit in my rush to get the episode together because I have the memory of a goldfish. Thank you for the tip. My private messages are open if any other listeners ever have something you want covered that I seem to have missed, or just chat about whatever. Jumping right into the big issues, McConnell tried to demand that Democrats agree not to change the filibuster, but Schumer shot him down. With Trump out, it's tempting to think that America has won the battle over cultism and autocracy. Many Germans thought the same after Hitler's first coup attempt failed. 10 years later, he was dictator. It's not alarmist or hyperbole, it's history. Stopping one coup attempt is not the end of this authoritarian trend. The victory we just won is not final. It is our last chance to pass the reforms that could truly save us. We've talked at length about the reforms needed to improve quality of life and reduce vulnerability to radicalization, ranging from score or ranked choice voting to UBI to standards of truth in social media. But the first step to any of it is to enable the passage of bills, which means busting the filibuster. Many Democratic legislators now understand this. As Bernie says, quote, "This is a fight not just for the future of the Democratic Party or good policy, it is literally a fight to restore faith in small d democratic government," end quote. From former Majority Leader Harry Reid, who experienced GOP obstruction under Obama, quote, "It's not a question of if the filibuster will be gone, but when it will be gone. You cannot have a Democratic body where it takes 60% of the vote to get anything done," end quote. Justified frustration with a paralyzed Democratic government feeds authoritarian populists who run on making government work. The filibuster will be the death of American democracy if we do not act. We must make clear to our government representatives that if they do not commit to doing whatever it takes to de-radicalize America via substantive reforms to reduce economic, democratic, and informational disenfranchisement, they will not only lose their seats, but their country as well. Ezra Klein wrote a fantastic article on this that I highly recommend everyone read. He made important notes about needing policy changes that Americans can clearly see the effect of in their own lives in order to calm the storm. Note that this is also a great foundation for arguing for UBI as the simplest and most impactful change that can be made to save democracy. I also put together a thread about Ezra's article, making the arguments for everything discussed above. I'd appreciate it if you could share it around. We have 2 years to pass enough legislation to change the course of history. There's no time to waste. Speaking of, as eager as I am to have an episode free of Trump, I should probably mention that he pardoned 143 people on his way out the door, including Steve Bannon, Lil Wayne, friends of the family, RNC fundraisers, GOP legislators, a whole host of white-collar criminals, and former Detroit Mayor Kilpatrick, who has a list of crimes so long and severe I'll leave it to his wiki page if you're interested. This is all more of the same for Trump, who has used the pardon power, as he does everything else, as a tool to increase his wealth and influence. The good news? No pardons for himself or family members. Surprisingly, he seems to have been discouraged from that by advisors. That means he is not off the hook for prosecution for federal crimes, assuming Biden doesn't pardon him. Don't even think about it, Joe. It seems unlikely considering Biden supports impeachment, but you never know with all his high-minded unity malarkey. Trump may not have drained the swamp, in fact he filled it to the brim, but he did pardon the swamp. I mean, now that their records are clear, they're not swampy anymore, right? Another job well done. If you want to see how the bobbleheads on Fox Business try to demonize a CEO choosing to pay his employees a living wage, check the link below for Dan Price's interview back when he announced his decision and now after the company has grown 300%. It's pretty amazing to see how they're trying so hard to push the socialism evil narrative that even treating employees well has become a vice in their minds. I fear it's an attitude pervasive in the big business community at large. And if you want another example of the GOP's unity, their pet conspiracy theorist Marjorie Greene is saying that she's going to try and impeach Biden, despite there being no grounds for it whatsoever. This is what the party has become and why the filibuster must go. Councillors in London are looking at introducing a UBI in the capital's pandemic recovery. London mayoral candidate Cian Berry and Liberal Democrat Assembly member Carolyn Pidgeon, they got some real names over there, argued for the idea at the London Assembly's Economic Committee on Wednesday in a 2-hour debate. Experts weighed in to inform the committee that modeling showed child poverty could be reduced by 40% if everyone received between 60 and 75 euros per week. Speaking of mayoral candidates, Matt shared what he says is an internal poll from Yang's campaign leaked by Gotham Gazette's executive editor Ben Max. It's a poll of likely voters in New York City showing Yang in the lead with 25% and Adams in second at 17%. Moreover, it shows Yang leading in second and third choices of other candidates as well, meaning his lead is even wider. It even includes mock runoff results showing that with the current polled votes, it would come down to Yang and Adams, with Andrew winning 61 to 39. On net favorability, it has Andrew in first with 52%, followed by Stringer at 44%. Of course, internal polls always deserve extra skepticism, and much can change before the real voting starts. But it is safe to say that he is starting this race in the lead rather than behind. His national appearances as a panelist on CNN have helped his name recognition a great deal. Yang also put out another short Instagram video today. He seems to be getting more active on that platform. It was just a general chat about his mayoral run. It's in the links if you need your daily hit of Yang. Finally, Jody Sarda just got her letter to the editor published in her local paper, The Trentonian. She argued in favor of monthly stimulus checks and universal health care, and reminds us that there's still offline media too, and it's often far more trusted. It doesn't take anything special to write an LTE. Find out where to send letters to the editor for your local paper and give them the facts on UBI and the filibuster. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the filibuster article and thread. Lobby your representatives to end the filibuster and acknowledge the extent of the threat to the nation. Write a letter to the editor of your local paper on any of this. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the Resist Bot or Income Movement Easy Contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread. And don't forget to Yang Daily.